Hi, I'm Rob Vanstone, and welcome to the 61st edition of the Leader Post Rider Rumblings podcast. In commemoration of our 61st podcast, we salute the Rough Riders number 61 Canadian Football Hall of Famer, the great Ed McQuarters. A Rough Rider from 66 to 84, played a key role in the 66 Grey Cup win, and just a fantastic man. So Ed McQuarters, we salute you. Today we salute Murray McCormick, who is unavoidably with us again today. Sorry, Murray. And we're very honored and pleased to have the wonderful Claire Hanna with us today of TSN CTV Sports. And she talked to Dana White in Edmonton.
That's how we're going to start, hey? Get right into it.
What was Dana White like? I got to know.
Okay, so down to earth. So humble. Like, these things blew my mind. There was an issue when he was doing the Jay and Dan interview before ours. Apparently, his, earpiece kept popping out. It didn't fit, and it was like a 10-minute delay, and they had to sort some stuff out. He didn't care. He was just like, yeah, no, you guys take your time, don't worry, you know what I mean? And he had this almost mob group with him, of his handlers and his people and his whatever, but we were talking, and again, he came over to me, and I just said, whenever you feel ready to join me, you can. We're going to be doing an interview at the third TV timeout in the first quarter. And he came over, and I was almost like, oh my gosh, we're going to have 10 to 15 minutes together. What are we going to talk about? And he was talking about his son who played football and his daughter who played volleyball, which obviously I connected with. And then I was like, would you ever take me as an MMA fighter? And he's like, I'm just going to say with your body type, maybe stick to volleyball. That was the big message he told me.
I was wondering how volleyball came up because you mentioned that. It's how did he know about your rich volleyball history?
Well, we were talking about athletes and stuff, and I was like, yeah, I don't think I could do this. I play volleyball. And he was like, oh, and then he started asking me questions. But it was cool because he was like, I'm friends. He didn't drop this name, but we were talking about Tom Brady, and he's like, yeah, I'm friends with the family because he's a huge Patriots fan. He's like, yeah, it's a great family. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are you friends with Giselle? And then I was like, what did you think about him taking his kid off of the waterfall in Costa Rica? And he was like, well, he had to take her. He's so heavy. He's got to commit. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right?
No.
Tom Brady? Okay, so Tom Brady's in Costa Rica, and his daughter and him are at the top of a waterfall. And this video went viral last week. And his daughter and him are holding hands, and they're like, okay, let's do it in 3, 2, 1. And then Tom Brady jumps, but she hesitates, and he yanks her, and it looks like he just pulls her over this cliff. So we talked about that.
We're not on top of things. We're still in 1962 here.
Okay. No, you guys. Anyways, I'm kind of going off, but what I want to say is he was so cool. I almost wanted to make a list of the things we talked about because I was like, this is Dana White. Oh, the Nunes Cyborg. I'm not sure if you pay attention to the UFC.
Kind of hard to.
Didn't Cyborg win on the weekend?
Yeah. Against Felicia Spencer, who's this Canadian who was 7-0 before she got there. Anyways, but he is so good at creating drama, right? He's a promoter. And so we kind of talked a bit about that. And I was like, what you do is awesome. He's like, isn't it juicy? I'm like, it's amazing. So anyways, he was so cool. I felt and then also awkward. After the interview, I always shake people's hands. I shook his hand and I felt like we had gotten so close, I hugged him. I went in for a big hug and it was really hard for me to get my arms around him. But I was like, I don't think that was awkward. Anyways, then he walked off, so I never saw him again.
Just so people know who he is, he's the president of UFC.
Yeah, sorry. That was your job to intro that.
Yeah, mine too. I know who he is, yeah.
Yeah.
Dana White. That's our show for
5 million followers on Twitter. Let's just throw that out there. I know.
How many does he have? Sorry.
That's okay. I'm we're at 0.1% or something.
Man, that is so cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was
I just had to know. You know what? That is... the CFL could borrow a lot from what UFC, MMA do as far as promoting. Sports franchises in general are so paranoid about bulletin board material. Don't say anything that's going to rile up the opponent. UFC, they get it. They build everything up as a grudge match, and there's a compelling storyline behind the matches. And it seems that the CFL goes out of its way to avoid that. Solomon Alamimian goes back to BC. Oh, no big deal. Manny Arsenault plays against, oh, no big deal, just another game. How does that sell the product? Ultimate Fighting's got it right, Mur?
Sure.
There's no hype.
There's no hype.
It's a hypeless league, and whenever there's a compelling
but the
angle,
problem is,
player goes back to former destination. Oh, no big
I've done
deal.
so many of the guys going back to their former destination stories that have turned out to be nothing but cliche riddled, and it's another game, and it's going to be just this and this and blah, blah, blah. And Solomon Aluminium and Miami guys are smart guys. They know what's going on. Charleston Hughes when he played the Stamps last year, that I don't even get excited about it anymore. He's going back to play. I think, Aluminium showed that he was pretty pumped up to play on the second play when he had that wide open blitz to drop Riley on Saturday to talk a little bit of football. And I think Arsenal was, but they just don't say anything. But I don't know. What do you want them to say?
Aluminium didn't want to go on TSN before the game, as I understand it.
Yeah,
because it was emotional for him. That's exactly why he shouldn't be on TSN.
I think it was.
That's part of the storyline. You've got to do that interview. And when TSN's paying the kind of money they're paying to the CFL, basically a partner and a lifeblood in many cases, you've got to do that interview.
Yeah, I agree with you. They should do everything. They should do everything to help us. But
especially when they look at the troubles this league is having.
Well, especially BC.
Where's the build-up for a game? It's just another game, another Thursday, another Friday. Build up the game. Sell the personalities. Sell the hype. Sell some conflict.
But Randy Ambrosi was pushing that earlier before he went on the Mexican World Tour of selling the CFL across league. He wanted us to tell the stories better. We got locker rooms open for 1 day a week. That's supposed to provide us with better access to players. They're supposed to be more accommodating by teams, and most teams are pretty accommodating to get to know guys. Like I had more time with Mike Riley on Friday in Toronto and BC than I had with any of the quarterbacks of the Rough Riders this year. So some teams get it, and some teams just don't bother to do that. So
I think you need buy-in, and it sounds like we're all saying this, though. If you're going to kind of create some drama and create some hype, you need buy-in from players, and you need them to be on board with this, regardless if there's grudges and stuff like that. And sometimes I find when we do interviews, and maybe it's because we're in Regina and there's like a billion of us there every day, and maybe it's I imagine it's probably exhausting for the players. But at certain points, like whether it's on TSN, they need to kind of be on board with okay, let's make sure we get some more viewers and like be a bit dramatic and say something crazy.
Well, BC is a place that needs to sell a 4:00 Saturday game on an absolutely drop-dead gorgeous BC afternoon.
I saw your Instagrams. Beautiful day.
Yeah, and it wasn't even humid, and they had that. Well, they say it's an open roof. They open the roof on the sun, on the sky, on the dome, and I keep wondering, is it a sunroof or just sort of maybe a little opening? Because it's not a very big opening for the roof.
I thought it was. Wait, I know it collapsed a few years ago, but I thought they couldn't open it.
No, they can't open it. Oh yeah, they spent $150 million renovating it, and it's just a small roof, and it's an old crowd. Like I feel young, and a very green crowd. You look around and there's huge pockets of Rough Rider fans who all kind of when a good weekend go to Vancouver to spend a weekend away and enjoy themselves. So it was a very green oriented crowd. So it was, especially when John Ryan had that. I'm trying to think which was first punt or his second punt. And they cheered it like crazy. And I thought, that's wild. You can't get over there.
Is that the crowd? I know you probably can't see this, but you know what I mean? I got this from a girlfriend. How cool. Cute is that? Anyways, I just got to show that crowd. That's a BC. That's in BC.
Well, no, they've closed off the top. They closed off the top portion of the stadium, so they can only get about 20,000. It's supposed to provide more of an intimacy because before, but I remember in the past when they closed off the top portion of the BC place, they'd open it when the riders got there.
Really?
The rider ticket sales were so strong, and it hasn't happened in a long time. Well, I haven't noticed the top been open lately. So,
speaking of openings, William Powell had lots of room to run.
So everybody did.
Claire, what did you make of that game? That just ceased to be interesting about midway through the first quarter. It was just so obvious what was going to happen to the BC Lions again.
Yeah.
A testament to how well the Rough Riders played, but also an indicator of how truly hopeless the Lions seemed to be.
Well, I didn't go back too far in my stats checking, but it was the first game this year and maybe the only game for the Riders that they'll have where they had more rushing yards than passing yards, and that's not normal for the CFL. But he is 31 years old, so he's getting up there per se, but his mind is so fantastic in terms of there was that on that 40-yard rushing touchdown. I thought he just hit a wall and I thought it was over, and then all of a sudden he squirted out the side and boom, he's in the end zone. And it's just there's that patience. There's maybe a gap doesn't open right in front of you, but somehow he avoided getting tackled but still got the touchdown. And I really want to know how you get that much patience as a running back to find,
it's his vision. That's his whole key. Is he has a vision of few running backs I've ever seen, and he also has the ability to stop and cut on a dime, kind of like Barry Sanders not as close, not as good as Barry Sanders, but he has that ability to cut and get open. And that when he did that, he saw that and he bobbled. But his vision, like Marcus Sigpen and these guys have talked about it, that he just has some, it's like I said, do your eyes go different directions because you manage to see the holes, and he just manages to take advantage of that. And he's just, it was fun to watch him run. I think he's going to make a run for the league rushing title now, I think.
I'd love a GoPro. Sometimes how they can like kind of, you can see like where they're looking to see his darting. I know the GoPro would probably not be like that, but I don't know. And he doesn't even have a visor that's black, hey?
No, but also give the offensive line a lot of credit. Like they created some huge holes. Mind you, if BC's line doesn't deserve anything, that was like probably the worst.
What an awful defensive line.
And like Odell Willis was just non-existent. It's like they've quit, and it's kind of wonder. And you've never say that about teams, but we were back. Remember in 15 when the Riders were 0-9, it looked like they'd quit on Corey. And you hate to say that about a pro because pros never quit. They really don't.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, how often did you see, whether it's Dan Clark especially, Dakota Shepley, Thaddeus Coleman, well, just name the entire offensive line basically, and they're 5 or 6 yards downfield, still shoving guys. On the William Powell 8-yard touchdown run, they're still shoving. As William Powell's crossing the goal line, Dan Clark is shoving the second line with whom he made contact on that play past the goal line.
The O-line's
they brutalized them.
It's like a wave that comes and there's like a whole bunch of toddlers and the wave just takes them all
Exactly.
out.
But they shouldn't be.
It's like this tsunami that was just washing away all these Lions' alleged defensive linemen.
And I don't hate to say, but it shouldn't be doing that considering all the injuries. If you think Brendan Labatt's gone, Philip Blake's gone, Jacoby Cofield's gone, Darius Bladdick was gone. Bladdick was gone too. So all these starters, the guys with hundreds of, totaling up hundreds of starts, and they've got Taron Vaughn stepping up, and Dakota Shepley, as I mentioned, is playing really well. Dan Clark, in his 100th game, had a 100th game for the ages. I think the best game I've ever seen him play.
All that was missing was the touchdown catch.
Yeah, that's
been a good build. That's been a good venue.
Didn't he have that in BC?
Yeah,
that's right. So that was a good game for Dan and good for him and good for the offensive line. Interesting, the receivers didn't really light it up, but they didn't. Cody
didn't really have to.
Didn't really have to.
But yeah, do you go in with a game plan to have your receivers light it up when that's working so much? And their O-line, I think that depth is so amazing, and it's a testament to how well-rounded it is. And let's see what it's like when it's tested against a team like Hamilton. But I can't remember really
11. I can't remember the Lions in 11 very well when they were 1-6. Did everyone write them off? They were 1-6 before, but I think there had to be more of a foundation to build on the 1-16. Because I said
there's nothing there.
Is it a good 1-6 team? There's no good 1-6 teams, but there's no.
Post-game, Farhan asked TJ Lee, "Is this the worst you've ever seen it?" And TJ Lee has been on that team for 6 years, and he said no comment. Yeah, which is a comment. That's a comment.
That's a comment. Says
when you get manhandled on both sides, both lines are scrimmaged to that extent. Yeah. And you can when you look at the composition of the Rough Riders defensive line and the amount of money they spent on that line, okay, you can understand that. But
they spent some money on that line, though. They didn't spend much. Or they
I'm saying that when you look at the money the Riders spent on that defensive line and the caliber of personnel, you can understand that defensive line having its way with an offensive line. But when you look at the Riders' offensive line, and as you mentioned, the absences that they have, and Dakota Shepley playing at the level he's playing so quickly in his career, the week before, Braden Schramm playing the way he did so quickly. The Lions have been decimated up front, and they're a mess. The Riders have been decimated up front, and they brutalized the Lions' defensive line.
Do you think, though, this is a case, I'm just going back to the BC Lions, of mismanagement in terms of you spent too much money on Mike Riley and you don't have enough money to spend other places? But where then do you get to the root of this issue? Because so many people in that preseason CFL poll had the Lions like pretty high up there, and I don't know. I didn't put them high up there because I just thought, okay, you've got Mike Riley, but like what else do you have around this pocket? But where is the issue? Where really is it?
The issue is the offensive line, but they spent money on Sink Chung. I think he's $250,000. And when you look at that line, I can't remember the beginning of the season. Those were named linemen at the beginning of the season. These weren't guys they dragged off the street. There are some decent players, and then they just haven't. It's got to be the coaching scheme. It's got to be who's ever coaching them. And then Mike Riley, whose expertise, he takes an extra second if you watch him, and he can't do that with this line. That's his effectiveness. He takes a little bit more time to find the right guys. He can't do that because he's getting killed right off the bat and getting beaten up. But yeah, I think it's the Riders don't back to the Lions a little bit. The Riders won the season series already. Edmonton has already won the season series already. So basically, the Lions are looking at the crossover.
Yeah. And they're not going to beat Calgary in the season series. They're not going to beat Winnipeg in the season series. So they've gone 0 for the West.
Unless they get a miracle.
So do we look at this 3-3 record? Do we say big deal, big stinking deals? Come show us something for real on Thursday night now.
Yeah, I'm of that train of thought.
Yeah.
They haven't been tested they haven't proven that they can rise to the occasion against a team that doesn't have a 1 in a billion record.
Yeah.
But I still think,
or an 0 in a billion record.
I asked the question, and I know that, but they still beat them. And I think the big thing, and Rob and I have touched, you've got to beat the teams you got to beat. If you don't beat them, you're in trouble. And the Riders have had a history of losing to teams. We talked about this a little bit. Of losing to teams they should
Montreal
beat.
last year,
and going out and soundly beating those teams is something that's we're not discrediting that, but at the same token, they're two of the worst looking teams you've ever seen in the CFL. And do you put any weight on the fact that you can thump two teams that maybe they couldn't be a U Sports team?
But I will say some of their losses this year. So let's see, Ottawa 3 points. And then Hamilton in that first game was by 1 touchdown, and there was a lot of adversity that the Riders faced in that first game, right? The only blowout they really had was that Calgary game, and, I don't think they came prepared. That was another short week, though. So here we have another short week. Maybe they've learned from that short week. No Jeremiah Masoli. Like, I think it's going to be a really good test.
We've been here before. We've been here before. Because they did the same thing to Toronto and came out and literally laid an egg.
Look at that Hamilton defense and the way they played against Winnipeg. And Matt Nichols had only thrown 1 interception going into that game. And then it was, okay, I think I'll intercept this pass for Hamilton on last Friday night. So suddenly it was, Jeremiah Masoli wasn't playing for most of that game, but that defense really took care of a Bombers offense that was purring.
I think they only scored 9 points after Mazzoli got hurt, didn't it?
So
I think this Thursday is going to show us a lot about who the true Riders team are.
Absolutely. Well, and that's what's intriguing about it. And now the Riders are on a mini roll coming into a home game.
What is a true Riders team then? What are you looking for them to show? The fact that
they can beat an upper echelon team.
Yeah, they looked so good this past weekend, but when you put maybe a bit more talent, do they crumble or do they still rise to the occasion? Like I think a true athlete, when they face pressure and adversity, they still do. They can control their own game and still do what they were doing, whether it's high or low. That's what I want to see. Just the same team, same consistency.
I think we saw growth in Cody Fajardo this weekend, though. I think he showed he ran strategically. He's got to take slides. He's got to slide a little more. That hit he took to the head. That's the whole Riders season. They're literally the whole Riders season standing on that one. So I need a couple of, he went out of bounds too. He laid the shoulder in a guy. And then he likes to do that because he's a competitor and he likes to hit people. But I think he's got to learn that he's got to slide, hook slide, get out of the way.
But can you just learn how to slide in 1 week? Because he says that's been his style his whole career. He's kind of always just like led with his shoulder.
He did it in the second half. He started to slide a little bit more, I think, in the second half.
But still, with Jeremiah Mazzoli, it showed that you don't even have to be hit.
Exactly. That's the sad part, yeah.
And so, the quarterback is going to be vulnerable even if he's doing all the right things. Zach Calaro slid third offensive play of the season. That didn't do him any good.
Well, Darian Durant back when he tore his Achilles. Just stepped back and went the Achilles.
So and the year before he got hit and it wasn't even officially a play.
Look at you guys. History, boom.
We're history, basically.
My history only
brought you in to modernize everything.
My history only goes back to stuff I remember, though. Rob's history goes back to way before things even happened.
That explains the wardrobe.
Yes.
So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting week, and I'm really interested to see how they respond, because I keep going back to that Calgary game, and maybe it's unfair to focus on one game out of 6, but that was the game where they really got tuned in, and that was the game where they were exposed. Now, how have they grown since that Calgary game? That to me is really the most intriguing aspect of the game. Yeah, Hamilton doesn't have its starting quarterback, but the Riders don't have the quarterback with whom they started the season either. Mm-hmm. No. So, okay, how do the Riders deal with the kind of pressure that Jagera Davis especially and the Tiger Cats exerted on Winnipeg? Presumably, they will try a lot of the same stuff, especially with facing a younger quarterback. How do the Riders deal with Jagera Davis? That Hamilton defense under Orlando Steinauer that is so good.
Well, I'm not going to modernize this so much here, but let's talk about the Wizard of Oz for a sec, because, okay, here in these past 3 games, what I think the Riders have gotten a bit more of is confidence and courage, okay? They know they can win. They've they've taught themselves that they can win. And I don't think they're looking at this as bad teams. I think they're looking at, we just beat two teams that are desperate. They are desperate, and they beat them. So yes, they're going into a strong Hamilton game, but mentally, I think, okay, this is a good place for them to be. You know, they're 3-3. They're not like grinding at the bottom. They're second bottom in the West, but I think that confidence can go a long way.
And for them to be 1-3, and then you're at that 1-3 point, and it looks like a season. Okay, that could just spiral out of control. And I think it's a testament to the Rough Riders that they took advantage of the opportunities before them. I like the way Craig Dickinson has handled things. I like the way Craig Dickinson's handled things in general. And I think that is one of the things that's really not a young coach, but a first-year head coach. Team starts off 1-3, loses starting quarterback, third play of the season. You've thrown a lot of obstacles in front of Craig Dickinson.
Even like,
and now they're 3-3 coming home.
Brett Lowther too.
Yeah.
Him being out is like a big, and I think that showed even this past weekend with Gabriel Ferrero, special teams not doing so hot, even just with his tackling and stuff. But
I like the way
attempted tackling.
I know. I was like,
I like how Craig and Jason Sharver set the tone on Saturday. The first two plays, smash him in the mouth. Like Edom comes there, gets a hurry on Riley. Aluminium gets the sack, and boom. And you can tell there's a team that's desperate with no heart, and they knocked the heart right out of him on the first two plays. And the rest of the game was over. You know, it gets a field goal, and Josh Bartel had that punt, but it still was one of those things that they set the tone right off. And I wonder if you can do that maybe with the Hamilton team. I don't know if they can do the same with Hamilton, but if they get after Dane Evans, who I'm assuming is going to be the starting quarterback, unless it's David Watford, and then again... David,
I wonder if they brought him in.
David Watford's passing percentage in university.
It was about 54. And in the year that he played the most, he threw 8 touchdown passes and 50 interceptions.
Wait, but were you going to go scandalous? You think they brought him in to learn the Riders playbook?
I think there's got to be some intel.
He hasn't been around for a while, though.
Well, he's not that far removed from it. No. Hey, David, tell us what the Rough Riders have in their arsenal.
Well, I think they also have 6 games of film, too.
They have Arsenal in their arsenal.
Yeah. Speaking of Arsenal, so he's had 2 catches in the last 2 games, keeping his streak alive. Do you think that's his role, keeping the streak alive?
Why? God, move him inside, let him waggle a bit.
I said to that when they talked about when I saw him, they moved him wide receiver. I said, all you've ever done is waggle. He says, in your whole time, this is all I've been. He said, when I first came up here, wide receiver, but he's been gone from a running start. But who does he replace? Moore? Roosevelt?
No, you just flip-flops the position. No, yeah. Corey Watson played well in BC, but I still think as Manny gets more comfortable with things, move him inside. Corey Watson is experienced playing outside. Let's see what Manny can do with a waggle. That's Manny Arsenal.
Well, there's another guy too, Micah Johnson. I know he's doing things, still none of the sacks, and that's really his forte as a defensive tackle is getting sacks. Mm-hmm. So Zach has sacks.
It's his. I'm sure it sucks for him to not have his stats there, but like he is doing so much. And is that fulfilling enough for him as a defensive tackle who was second in the league last year?
I would think it's not.
I would think it's not too, but I feel like at the same time, like he's an experienced CFL player, you got to dig deep and realize what you're doing for the team is bigger than on the stat sheet.
Which has been pretty much their motto this season.
You didn't like that.
I mean, they're not paying.
They're not paying him $250,000 for morale.
No, but I'm not saying morale. I'm just saying like his drawing doubles and things like that.
And that's being a little. I know he's doing a lot of stuff. And Charleston Hughes, they said to Zach, "What happened to Charleston Hughes?" He says, "What happens when a guy gets 3 sacks against you?" I says, "Well, you block him." He says, and that's what they did. They concentrated on Charleston Hughes, and as we've been saying, the rest of the defensive line had to step up and did very nicely.
Yeah, there's no ground for maligning Micah Johnson or anybody on that defensive line when they own the whatever it is that comprises the Lions' offensive line, because that was just total. That was inhumane what the Riders did to the Lions on both lines of scrimmage.
What do you think of Shaq Evans' season so far? Is he coming to be the guy that we expected last year? We kept making fun of the fact he could catch lots of ball, and I know he came close, but he's still going to get a touchdown, and we don't have time to explain all the touchdowns he may have not had.
Well, he should have made a block on the hitch screen to Kyran Moore. Instead, that didn't happen. And 2nd and 2 became a special team situation. But that nitpicking aside, you look at the year that Shaq Evans has had, averaging close to 20 yards a catch. Yeah. And being a productive player near the end zone, he's been one of the top 5 receivers in the league this year. I did not think that was going to happen, and I will happily concede that I'm wrong. Claire?
I think he's he was inconsistent last year. I think there's still some inconsistency. We even see it in practice. Sometimes he'll make a big catch and then he'll just drop it when it's right at his numbers. I think he's just slowly ironing out his own kinks, but he's obviously having a great year. And you can see that if he can iron those kinks out, he can be an amazing player.
Can you imagine the Red Blacks let Lucius Purifoy just walk away? Right?
I think that's so fascinating. He obviously just didn't get along with that team.
He said he didn't, I was reading again, didn't get along with the defensive coordinator a little bit. And sometimes there was rumors that he's a bit of a locker room guy, can be a bit of a disruption, but I've not seen anything of that in him. And
he was pretty open about that last year, though. He said he bumped heads with that team, but he looks like the best teammate with this team.
Yeah, remember
like
they re-signed
hustles.
him. They re-signed him. Him and Needham, they both re-signed them quickly, and that was when Chris Jones was here. And I wonder if they kind of went, "Oh, Chris Jones is gone. What's going to happen to us?" And I think it's Shivers is the position there that's helping. But I really didn't think Purifoy was that good of a returner, and that's because I don't remember seeing him return. But boy, he's got speed, he's got moves, he's got elusiveness. He does everything.
That touchdown was coming. If you look at it, I mean, he prior to that, he'd had 10 out of the 31 kickoff returns, 32 kickoff returns he's had with the Rough Riders. 11 of them have been for 30-plus yards. He's had 5 of them, 5 in the 40s, 1 in the 60s, and now 1 in the 80s. So you could see that coming. He was just a tackler away from breaking one. And then against BC, if you look at it, that the special teams and the defense beat the Riders' offense to the punch on Saturday. Special teams scored the touchdown. Defense hemmed in the Lions, ends up with a safety touch. It was the offense that needed some time to actually get a touchdown to really force the issue. They got the field goal early from Ferraro, but it's the most emphatic plays were made by the defense and the special teams before the offense got rolling. They just had the Lions on their heels from the start.
Let's have some fun. MVP.
Wait, we're not having fun?
Games. After 6 games, MVP. Most outstanding player for the Riders.
Charleston Hughes.
I was going to say Cody Fajardo.
Yeah, I was going to say Charleston Hughes, actually.
You just kind of played us there.
Yeah.
That's a good debate, though.
Yeah.
Who's the MVP so far?
That's a really good debate.
I just think, okay, I'm comparing the offense to last year. Look at what Cody Fajardo's done in his, let's call it, rookie starting season. He had 1 bad game. He has been so steady mentally. He's so good. I think he's so good.
And what predicament would the Riders have been in had he not been what he's turned out to be?
They would not be.
We're talking about them as we're talking about the Argos and the BC Lions.
I agree.
That's funny. With all the quarterbacks going down, who'd have thought that this weekend's game would be Dane Evans versus Cody Fajardo?
Yeah.
And what that's going to be. And Cody Fajardo's the decisive leader in that game, has hold the edge. I think Evans started 1 game last year. I think he started 1. He had some passes. I don't know how he would.
I don't believe that.
Wait, like quarterback?
Yeah, I
thought it was Jeremiah Mazzoli because he had that huge streak. Remember, he was like on pace for breaking 300 yards until like week 7.
Yeah, maybe I read that wrong. I just thought I read that in a story.
He doesn't. I mean, he didn't do virtually anything against Winnipeg. He basically didn't get them in a lot of trouble.
But that's doing a lot. That's saying something though. He didn't get them in trouble.
You know what he did? He did what Darian Durant did in week 2 against BC in 2008 when they made the quarterback change at halftime. Marcus Crandall got hurt. Stephen Giles was ineffective. Darian Durant came in, didn't do much except not get the team in trouble in that first appearance, and that's pretty much what Dane Evans did for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and they let that defense carry the day. Now, given a week of prep with the longer week than the Riders are going to have of preparation with the first team offense, we'll get a better indication of what he's all about, but that defense will be tough to play
So
against.
BC basically played a zone again on Saturday. And what did Cody do? He threw underneath. And I think that's a sign of his growing, his maturity. He's not going to force the long passes and that kind of thing. And he showed some pretty good strive and poise. Poise. Sorry. It was my delete back key. But I think he showed that kind of he's growing as a quarterback, that he doesn't have to do that kind of stuff. So maybe that's a sign of growth from him as a quarterback. And he's a fun interview.
I was going to say he
seems like such a great guy.
He's very faith-based. I think we all have to understand that. And this line, he said, sprinkle a little Jesus over that fun
that
passes.
was so cute.
Kind of all went, okay. But that's not nothing. He can be faith-based. Yeah. If I was, my job depended on a lot of life and a lot of luck, I'd probably have beach reading of a higher power that will protect me too. But he's very, and it's fun, and he kind of likes talking to us, and he likes to be out there. But
he's open to, oh my goodness.
That's the alarm. We're done. Thank you.
It's starting late. So we have time.
Yeah, he
It's
talks.
starting late.
It
so we have
is?
time. Yeah.
He's open about his personal life too. You know, he talks about his wife and missing her and making sure he gets there on bye weeks and she comes here or whatever.
Well,
but
they're just
so it's,
freshly married.
I know,
You
but
haven't been married yet. There's something about that first year that's just wonderful.
I guess I'm just saying, like, he
38
is
years.
not afraid to tell us about. And when we ask the questions, everybody always kind of dodges the tough ones. But I truly find he's really open and tries to give us the most honest answer without putting his teammates under the bus.
I think back to Friday night, and I was interviewing Craig Dickinson about the Mike Shepard firing and trying to find out what happened. And people are saying that Craig Dickinson was running in circles and speaking, but I thought he answered the questions.
I thought he did a good job of that.
There's a chemistry problems. They did it for the good of the team. It had to change, and we made the change now. So people are saying, was there? I think does Craig Dickinson doing the thing is a problem with the players? I think Craig Dickinson listened to the players. Whatever Mike Shepard does did not go in, not going well with that defensive line. So I decided, okay, we got to cut bait and let him go. And Mike Shepard's a great guy. He's a decent guy. He's got a family. He's been living in Regina, and I'm not saying he's not.
Him and Craig Dickinson are really good friends.
They're good friends.
That'd be tough for Craig.
So it's tough, and that shows a rookie coach. And listen to your players. Like, I wonder if the previous regime, he would have said, no, I'm going to listen to my coaches, and we'll get rid of the players. No, Craig's saying, no, I'm going to listen to the players, because that's maybe the special teams. You have to be more open and more willing to accept ideas from special teams guys. I wonder. I don't know. But it just shows a poise and maturity from Craig that I'm going to listen to my players, because my players, they may not like the style of this coach.
Well, I remember last year I was chatting with Craig. Craig Dickinson and Mike Shepard walked by me after practice. And Craig said...
You were at a practice? Sorry.
The annual practice I attended. And Craig said, you know who you should put in your nice people who deserve a plug section? You should put Mike Shepard. Mike Shepard belongs in there.
Really?
So I put Mike
Craig
Shepard in there and had some fun with it. It was Craig Dickinson giving a shout, asking me to give a shout out to Mike Shepard for being a nice person. So that's indicative of how Craig Dickinson perceives Mike Shepard.
He was the energy guy under Chris Jones. You go to practice and he'd just be yelling and screaming and running around, because Chris believed you have to coach energy. You don't just get it. And so he didn't do that as much here. But I think the rumor is he's a yeller and a screamer, and sometimes that just wears on the guys. Sometimes you can't yell at them all the time. You have to deal with them, and you have to, like, I think, be a little more sedate or more relaxed and deal with that stuff. But special teams coaches have been living for years yelling at guys.
We bring Claire in for energy.
That's true too. Yeah.
But, okay, one thing I'm going to say too is not everybody, but a lot of people thought Craig Dickinson is such a nice guy. Does that translate to being a good coach? But I think this indicates that he's not afraid to make a tough, mean, let's call it, decision and let a guy go that he obviously respects really well, because it's for the better of the team. So I think we need to look at this as, yeah, he's nice, but he still, doesn't shy away from the tough decisions. I think
people just aren't willing to believe that coaches actually tell the truth. A coach will actually tell the truth on a regular basis. Like, I still get shocked when he tells his injury information. I go, huh? Okay, because no one tells that. He's just
been very honest and very forthcoming.
So that's why I said when people were jumping all over him saying, "Oh, all this stuff," he was just spinning circles and stuff, and it was spin. I was going, "No, that's not Craig. It was no spin. I don't think there was." And is there something more? There's always another story behind the story, and one day we may find out that something was going on. Just like one day we may find out who the 13th man was in 2009. I'll be long gone before that ever happens, Rob.
Well, you've got to know by November, because I put you down for a story.
Yeah, no. Good, lucky me.
10-year flashback.
Yeah, 10 years. 10 years, eh? Really, is that long ago?
But, I think if you look at Craig Dickinson and the way he's handled the media, people say, well, you're the media, who cares about people, how people handle the media? And maybe that's a valid comment, but we're the conduit in a lot of cases to the fan base. This fan base that has a voracious appetite for all things Rough Riders. You're talking to the fans via the media. Ken Miller got that. Other coaches in Rider history have gotten that. Some have been absolutely oblivious or indifferent to it. But that's what Craig Dickinson understands. He's talking to the fans who pay his salary, which is not inconsiderable. And that's the way a head coach, especially in this market, should conduct himself. Craig Dickinson's been great.
Well, it's just like even works with the quarterback position. I've always said, if your quarterback is not going to sell the team, you don't have the right quarterback. And I really think, and regardless of how well they play, you've got to be the guy that's going to be the face of the team. Before Craig, they wasn't a face of this team. Zach Clares doesn't, regardless of what he wants, he doesn't want to be that. And he's allowed to do that. I don't think you should do that.
That's his prerogative.
But he's living his truth, you guys. Let him live his truth. That's who he is. He doesn't want to be the face. That's who he is.
You got to be the face. You got to sell tickets. You got to sell a team. When we ask the questions of react to Charleston Hughes' thing. He's the guy, like Brendan Labata's guy, has been stood up for many, many years, answering the tough questions or reacting speaking on behalf of the team. And no one has. We haven't had that at this team for quite a while. I don't know if Cody hasn't had to respond to anything like that. He has, other than the adversities he's faced a little bit as a quarterback. But we'll see. They need someone to stand up. And I think right now Craig Dickinson's kind of the face of the team with Cody in the background.
Like you look at Cody Fajardo and the way he handled that Calgary game. And he put it on himself. Yeah. And it's as quarterbacks do increasingly. But not only that, he spelled out what Calgary did to him and how he had to deal with it. Yeah. And then he went out and did what he had to do to deal with a defense that tried to play against him the way Calgary had. Mm-hmm. He told us what the problem was. He put it on himself. And then he went out and did it. Yeah. And that's a leader.
One more thing is, though,
that's
you guys
voice.
Like, yeah, you need a face, but it's got to be authentic and it's got to grow naturally. I don't think you can just say, "Hey, buddy, it's time. You got to step it up.
Yeah.
So and so isn't coming back or whatever. You've got to be the face of the team and then just expect it to happen overnight." Yeah. Like, it's got to grow naturally. I don't know if it happened immediately overnight with Darian Durant. You know, it just grows naturally.
Oh, it was pretty quickly. Well, Mike Riley's the guy that stands out for me because he's always been, even on Friday, like he's getting the living heck kicked out of him every game, and he stood there and answered every question I could think of for 15 minutes.
But you can't force it. I remember when I covered the Regina Pats once upon a time, and there was a coach who thought that a player should be the captain of the team and the voice of the team. He thought this player was respected by the entire dressing room. Guess what? He wasn't. He wasn't cut out to be a captain, and he wasn't cut out to even be a top 6 forward. But the coach liked this player, and he kept trying to force it on him, and it just did not sell well with the dressing room, and ultimately it affected the team's performance. You can't say simply because you're the quarterback and you're the acknowledged leader that you've got to be this way. Some people don't have it in them, and Cody Fajardo seems to have it in them. Zach Collaros, when he was in Hamilton, put a lot of that on his shoulders and performed very well he took the Hamilton Tiger Cats to a Grey Cup in 2014. And probably would have gotten there again in 2015, would have been the league's most outstanding player. He can handle being a quarterback in this league, and he's used to the scrutiny. The scrutiny here seemed to be a bit of a different issue, but it just wasn't right from the outset last year. It was just a difficult year for him.
I wonder if the Chris Jones wasn't the right fit, the two of them. The Chris Jones style of you don't tell anybody anything. You know, you just you don't open
like
up.
when they wouldn't even know who was starting. Yeah, you know,
even trying to tell stories about the players, they were very reluctant to open up about their lives and stuff. And now you're seeing more of these features pieces on the players talking about their backgrounds and things. I don't know if they were quite as comfortable opening up about that as they might under Craig, and Craig encourages that, and the Riders are sort of encouraging more access. Well, there's never enough, but always. But that is the big question this week. Is Zach back? No, the other Zach Claris. Do we need to go there? Or do we just...
But as of recording this podcast, we don't know whether he's eligible to practice this week if they want to bring him off the 6-game injured list after.
Yeah, after
but
Hamilton.
Our situation here is the Rough Riders are about to begin practice, and Claire's about to leave for practice, as is Murray. And
no Simone Lawrence, which I guess
no
is
Simone. We don't know what the Claro situation is going to be for this week, so we really can't. We can't really go into that one because we're just time wise.
No comment. Hey,
time wise, we're in a position where we can't really. I think it would be folly to bring him back earlier at all. That's been documented, but as far as what the events of the day might be, we don't yet know.
But Simone Lawrence will not be there. We know that for sure, and so. Based on how long that all took to work out, I guess the Riders gained something from what happened to them as they don't have to face.
As Dickinson said, the timing was just right.
Yeah,
his absence sure didn't hurt them against Winnipeg, though, did it?
No.
You know that defense was just all over them.
It's a good. Hamilton's got a bit of tradition of defenses when they got good teams. Back in the days, back in the good old days,
long before Claire was born, and when Murray and I were in high school.
Yeah, I remember when Ronnie took over them. They had a great defense. They just needed some offense.
Montford.
What an amazing defense. And they had Danny Mack as his quarterback then, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
And they went on and won a Grey Cup under Ronnie.
Claire, anything you'd like to add about MMA or about volleyball or about football?
Oh, no, you guys. You can just follow the Instagram to see all that, you know.
You're like the most, of all my Instagram people I follow, you're like the most active. You just work at it really hard. Maybe you could throw out your Instagram.
Oh, gosh, it used to be even better. It used to be even more juicy, you know, like way more bugs and way more cucumbers and, you know, or no, eggplants. You
can never have enough bugs on
I can't figure out how you guys write words on your...
I'm a good gardener and not a good...
you guys get to write words on your Instagram accounts. That kind? You have to show me that
Oh,
one day.
yeah. We'll have to go through a bit of a tutorial.
I mean,
Yeah.
your tropical vacation is just like I'm seeing all these things from like jungles on Instagram. It's just wow.
How do you do that? Yeah, that's
Well,
so cool.
first of all, you buy a ticket and you go to Bali. That's how you do it. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, Rob will buy a ticket and go watch highest with you wrestling.
High impact wrestling. That's about as exotic as I get. So
I think,
But not the UFC.
My final thoughts is the Tiger Cats game is the first really big test. They're all big tests. It's a really
and
big
there's a
test.
stretch coming up now too.
Yeah, but they play 2 games and then they're on another bye week. 2 games. They got Montreal, and Montreal, as we can see, has been rolling
Really good.
as of late with under the leadership of former riders.
Yeah.
And
Vag, right? Vernon Adams Jr., right?
Yep.
That's what they're calling him.
Are they really?
Yep, Vag.
Really? Okay, that's a good one. I didn't know that.
Murray, read the sign off.
After that one, I got to have to follow that one. If you enjoy it, sorry. Okay.
Take 2. Extra, take 2.
If you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review and a 5-star rating. It helps us grow the podcast. You can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to send us a question, you can email Rob at rvanstone@postmedia.com and we'll read it on the show. You can also follow Rob on Twitter at Rob Vanstone, or me at MurrayLP, or Claire at...
Clahanna. CLAHANNA.
And that's...
A much more interesting
yeah.
social media follow than Murray and I, as you can probably gather from this podcast. Claire, thank you once again for being such so kind as to join us.
Thanks.
Murray, thanks.
Do we end on a dab? Remember I taught you guys how to dab last year? Ready? 1, 2, 3.
What's a dab? Oh, that we didn't
Yeah,
take a
there
picture.
we go. The dab.
The dad. I heard that's popular.
We're not cool at all, Mur.
No,
We are.
No,
you
hang
and
on.
I are not.
You're
cool.
not cool at all. I'm rocking. I know how to be cool.
Claire is a paragon of cool, and we're just here. I'm anxious to get off the podcast so I can listen to some Glenn Miller records.
Yeah.
And
I like Glorious Sons. There's a plug for them. I really like Glorious Sons. The Glorious Sons.
Gotcha. I'm going to go with Jamie XX, okay?
what is that?
Yeah, just go Google him, okay? He's good.
All right, we'll try that.
We're so uncool. I heard something.
You're uncool. I'm cool. I'm.
Like the other day, I heard like kind of a top 20 list of musical artists.
Are we still running this? Is this
yeah,
still going?
I hadn't heard of any of these people. I don't know who they are. I'm so obsolete.
Well, have you heard
Claire
the
is-
Beatles?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Claire mentioned Bugs earlier. Now we're talking about Beatles.
Okay.
Anyway,
All right, we
we
gotta
have
go.
to go. It's 11:25 a.m.
Riders
Regina time.
practice.
For Murray, for Claire, Hannah, thanks again. I'm Rob, and I apologize for that tangent. And we'll do this again next week if you'll
Thanks for
have
having
us.
me.
Our pleasure.
You're
Take care,
welcome. Come
Claire.
again.